There are sports cars, there are supercars, and then there's the car that invented the hypercar segment, the Bugatti Veyron. Even if you don't know that much about cars or like cars that much, you likely know what the Bugatti Veyron is. That's just how much weight the Bugatti name and brand carries. The numbers associated with the Veyron when it first came out were unbelievable. It was unmatched in essentially every single metric: top speed, acceleration, price, power, everything unprecedented by any production car before it. This became the world's fastest production car, with the regular Veyron doing 253 miles an hour. It was later superseded by the Veyron Supersport that did 267 miles an hour. And I can't believe I'm saying this sentence. Today, I get to drive a Bugatti Veyron. And this is no ordinary Veyron. They built 450 for the entire world across various different model designations. They had the regular 16.4, it was a Grand Sport, the Super Sport. This one has been fully modified by Mansory, so you have this full exposed carbon fiber body, couple touches, the gold accents. This one's got some gold wheels on it too. And in the scheme of Mansory builds, I actually like the Veyron kit. Some of their stuff goes a little bit over the top, a little too much for my taste, whereas this stays relatively OEM and accents some of the stuff, and the full carbon body definitely looks really cool. The Bugatti Veyron has an 8-liter quad turbocharged W16, hence the 16.4 designation that you see on the model name and also on the engine. That is 16 cylinders, 8 liters of displacement, 4 turbochargers, making 1,001 horsepower, because of course it has to exceed that 1,000 horsepower number. Later iterations of the Veyron increased the power, and obviously the Bugatti Chiron now still has an 8-liter W16, making even more power. 922 pound-feet of torque, power is sent to all 4 wheels. It does have all-wheel drive and has a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission that Bugatti said was the first of its kind in a production car, and it's extra special because it has to put up with all of that torque. This car's top speed, 253 miles an hour, is unfathomably fast. There are very few places in the world that can go that fast in a car. At its top speed, the Veyron consumes as much air in 1 minute as a human being does in 4 days of breathing. Told you all the numbers with this car are absolutely unbelievable. We currently have the car here in handling mode, which lowers the suspension down. It puts that rear wing up, which also functions as an air brake. So this is the handling mode. There's also a regular mode and then the top speed mode, which lowers it, makes it much more slippery, more aerodynamic to hit that claimed top speed. Of course, once you put the special key in and turn it there right next to the driver's seat. In terms of exterior styling, I never thought the Veyron was the prettiest of supercars or hypercars. It's definitely very curvaceous, but it has presence. It stands out with that big wing up, with the Mansory full carbon fiber body and all these gold accents, including these gold aftermarket anarchy wheels that we should mention, because OEM Bugatti wheels and tires are so terrifyingly expensive. Some owners have actually gone to aftermarket sets because then you can just run aftermarket wheels and regular Michelin tires. If you were to get brand new tires at OEM, I believe there's something like $25,000. The wheels are something like $75,000. They have to be specially mounted and everything. And even if you can buy a Bugatti Veyron, that's a little bit ridiculous. You just want to have the OEM set if you are going to try to hit that top speed number. Other exterior touches to note. This one does have the more updated headlights. We have the cool little LED accent on the front from Mansory and this little V logo there underneath the regular Bugatti logo on the grille. Again, full carbon fiber here, the gold accents on the fuel door, on the trim here. You see the giant intakes. This thing has 10 radiators to handle all the heat that this thing will dissipate, amount of air coming into the vehicle to fuel that gigantic 8-liter W16. In the back, you just have the engine bay exposed. You can just see everything in there. This one's got a lot of carbon fiber accents to it. And when you have the wing up, it's just this big opening back here. You can look in, I can see the exhaust. Around back at the circular Bugatti taillights, big square center exit exhaust with actually this one has some supplemental exhaust tips to it. It's a more simple design, especially if you look at some of the hypercars that follow this. Look at something like a Lamborghini Veneno. The thing is covered in angles and vents and everything like that. With that, let's hop in the car. We're gonna take it for a drive, talk about the interior, talk about what it's like to drive, and the value. Obviously, it's very expensive. It's a Bugatti Veyron. key in. We're going to take it out of handling mode as we hit the road for the first time. Gives you a bit more clearance. Rear wing is going down. You can see that in the rear view mirror. All right, you can feel the car raise up a bit. The shifter right here in the middle. Park is the button on top. Neutral is to the left, and then towards you, back, that's reverse. And then to the right is drive. There we go. We are in drive in a Bugatti Veyron. The whole pedal box is actually shifted really angled towards the right, towards the center of the car. Oh, you just hear. Oh man, the noises. Well, we are now on the road in a Bugatti Veyron. My heart rate is definitely elevated. I can't believe I'm driving a Veyron. This car came out, it launched to the world when I was still a kid. Seeing it on the internet, reading about it in the magazines, watching it on things like Top Gear, and just hearing about what this car was, what it represented, the engineering that went into this vehicle was unfathomable. It was a level beyond the already unreachable supercars like Lamborghinis and Ferraris to a little kid. And now I'm behind the wheel of a Veyron. I've gotten to spend some time with very special cars. Lamborghinis, Porsches, McLarens, Ferraris. Recently, I have had the very good fortune to get to experience another dream car, the McLaren P1. Drove a Koenigsegg Regera, and now a Bugatti Veyron. But something about the Veyron, I think it's because it came out when I was still younger, is still like a tier above. Even though a Regera is probably worth more, makes way more power, way more rare. They built 80 of those, whereas there's 450 Veyrons. Something about this being a Bugatti makes it seem extra special. In terms of the interior, the Veyron is relatively simple, and I think they did a good job of doing everything they could to not let this car age. A vehicle of this level should try to be as timeless as possible. And you know what dates a car the absolute most? Technology, in terms of like infotainment screens and displays. This one doesn't have a big infotainment screen, which is a good thing. I was just recently driving a Lexus LFA, which is actually newer than this car, but that infotainment screen looked like it came from my TI-84 graphing calculator, so that was not good. It seriously aged the interior of that car. Whereas this, yes, there are some digital displays, but they're just showing things like numbers and your radio station and your temperature. It's not as critical, and therefore I think this car will stand the test of time better. I think they did something similar for the Chiron too, trying to, again, make sure the car doesn't age too much when in 50 years time it's at Pebble Beach Concours or whatever, right? This one has full carbon fiber interior. I think those are Mansory touches. We have the Bugatti dash clock, air vents here. Everything that's metal is metal. We do have heated seats. We have a button here for launch control. We have a button here to put it into and out of handling mode. So we're in regular right now. The heated seats here toggle, and we have a CD player. Yeah, that will age the car quite a bit, because I don't think I've held a CD in, I don't know, 10 years time. The center cluster is crazy too. Front and center is your tachometer. It's an analog tachometer. It doesn't rev all that high. It looks like redline's like 6,500 RPM. That's the most important thing right in the middle. And then on the left, you have the power gauge. So it goes to 1,001 horsepower and 100 horsepower increments. And then on the very right side, we have a speedometer, which goes to 280 miles an hour. Which also means the 40 miles an hour I'm doing right now is just squeezing a little corner there. There is a tiny little digital readout. We have steering wheel fixed paddle shifters, carbon fiber. The big EB logo right in the middle is a little bit crazy to me. I mean, it's a Bugatti right there. Wow, I did a more detailed walk around interior tour in the other video too. I've got pretty good headroom. I'm 6'3", I got pretty long legs, and I'm honestly quite comfortable in this car. Very great visibility, huge viewpoint. Even the rear window is massive, so through that rear view mirror, you can see that quad turbo W16, but visibility is quite good. I don't even know, there aren't any roads around here that I can find that I could actually like drive this car. That's the other thing. This is too much for the real world, right? It's just way too much car. Driving wise, around normal driving, it actually, I mean, it feels relatively normal. Yes, the noises and the viewpoint is different, and your mental aspect is very different, knowing that I'm in a car that costs, I don't know, 25, 30, 100 times more than my car, whatever, right? It's relatively livable. It is pretty firm. I am on a not so great road, and it does seem like you're getting more of the outside in compared to the Chiron. The Chiron was a little more insulated. The Veyron was designed to where it could be capable on track, even though it's pretty heavy. I think it's like 4,500 pounds. Obviously with 1,000 horsepower, who really cares that much? But it was supposed to be track capable, top speed capable, comfortable enough that you could still hop in the car and go to dinner, a nice dinner, or go to a show or something like that, right? Where you could use it all year round, all-wheel drive. I mean, this one's got 17,575 miles on it too, so it has been used, it has been driven, it has been enjoyed, it has seen usage. And that's where I think Bugatti has an advantage, because at the end of the day, under Volkswagen Group, they know how to build cars. They know how to design them, they know how to engineer them. It's gonna be reliable, catastrophically expensive to own, but reliable. Some of these other really bespoke, tiny volume manufacturers have issues, electronic issues, sometimes they're mechanical, just because they're building a couple dozen, right? That was like 400 horsepower. Why does 400 horsepower in a Bugatti feel very different from 400 horsepower in a Toyota Supra? What? Whoa, sport mode is way more aggressive already. What the heck? Yeah. Let's try the paddle shifters. All right, I'm gonna put this into handling mode. The road is smoothed out, the wing just went up. How does a Bugatti Veyron handle? Okay. Alrighty, let's go. I just went full throttle on a Veyron. It doesn't give you that punch that some of the other, like a McLaren P1 feels much more punchy. This was just this massive wave of torque and power. You just ride it. It just builds in a crescendo until you're just, wow. That, again, is unlike anything I've ever driven before. Very different feeling from the P1. Very different from the Koenigsegg Regera, obviously. Yes, it does feel similar to a Chiron from the passenger seat. Wow. And now we're just sitting here at a red light. It's pretty quiet. You can hear the engine back there, but I would be able to have a normal conversation. I'm not yelling. The P1 feels much more race car, right? You hear like pebbles hitting the car. It's like high-strung race car, very stripped out, rattly, like that type of feel to it. The Regera felt really solid. This is more akin to that in terms of the more GT feel, but then just an ending wave of power. Whoa! Yeah, I'm speechless. This dual clutch transmission actually is pretty great. Listen to those downshifts. It's also backwards. The numbers go from 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's first gear. Road is closed. In handling mode, I wouldn't say this thing is nimble. The steering is surprisingly light. This thing has huge carbon ceramic brakes. They're 400mm front, 380mm rear, and the fronts are 8-piston with 4 brake pads. because this thing needs to stop, obviously, from over 250 miles an hour. This actually stops faster than it accelerates, and it accelerates stupendously, right? 0 to 60 was 2.5 seconds. 0 to 186 miles an hour, which is 300 kilometers an hour, was 16.7 seconds, and that was for the regular Veyron. 16.7 seconds to get to 186 miles an hour? Yeah. On pretty smooth, nice pavement, even in handling mode, this thing rides quite comfortably. I'm honestly shocked how easy this is to drive. I remember the first time I drove a Lamborghini Aventador, and I was like, whoa, this is not easy to drive. It was stressful, it's hard to see out of, it's clunky. And I was like, are all supercars like this? Well, the Veyron certainly is not. The transmission is seamless. The upshifts, you don't even feel them. You can hear it. And the engine, even with the exhaust, it just sounds like this rumble of power. It's not crazy loud. It doesn't scream like an NA GT3 or a Ferrari V12 in a LaFerrari. It's just the sound of like boost, power, air moving around. I guess that's what a Bugatti sounds like. You could daily drive a Veyron. I'm convinced of that. It would cost you a ton of money, an insane amount of money. It would cost the numbers associated with the Veyron beyond the performance and the specs and things like that. We've talked a good amount about that. I'm sure many of you already know many of the crazy metrics too, right? Because they've been quoted everywhere. Wow. We will talk about value in a second, but I have a chunk of open road right now. What? I just want to keep doing this. I was looking to see if I don't think I braked hard enough for the air brake to go up, which when it does, that thing contributes a lot to your braking force. All right, let's talk about the value of the Bugatti Veyron. It's a lot. When these came out, over $1 million MSRP was, again, unfathomable at the time. One of the most, I think the most expensive new car ever. With exchange rates and I think it was like 1.6 million starting, and then there were later iterations that got even more expensive. The special editions, the super sports, obviously, the one-offs or the different. The different paint schemes and special editions. Wow. And then this Mansory one here adds even more. I think Mansory wanted close to $1 million to do this kit on the vehicle. I think they only built 3 of these, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, market value 1.5 to over 2 for a Veyron. I think Veyrons bottomed out and have started climbing again. They're just gonna keep going up. And I think truly long term, the Veyron should be worth a ton of money. Look at the McLaren F1. What made the F1 so special? Fastest car. It was so rare at the time. This was a similar thing. It became the fastest production car, and the numbers associated with the Veyron were, again, unfathomable, and it became a cultural icon. The Bugatti Veyron. It kick-started a new echelon of performance, price, prestige in the car world. And then, if you look these days, I always say this to some friends, there are almost too many hypercars. I'm not complaining. It's just they don't feel as special as they did back when this came out. You had the Veyron, and then you had like the Hypercar hybrid Holy Trinity come out with the P1 918 LaFerrari. But now these days, if you want to spend $2 to $5 million on a car, you could probably have 25 different choices. You have these speedsters, the Monzas, and the Aston Martin Speedster, and the McLaren Elva. You have the Bugatti Chirons. You have the special editions of the Chirons. You got Bugattis, you got Koenigsegg's. You got smaller manufacturers. You got like the Gordon Murray T50. There's so many ways a billionaire can spend $5 million on a car, it's starting to become almost ordinary. But the Veyron was like the first, the pinnacle. The things that this did, these other cars now have met and superseded. They're better or faster or whatever, cheaper to own. A Chiron, I think, is much cheaper to own than the Veyron. The ownership costs on these are terrifying. Like yearly service is like 20, 30 grand, right? That's the price of a small family car. The wheels and tires, I mentioned that, right? I don't even want to know what like replacement part costs are. I think I read somewhere the transmission is $125,000 in a Bugatti Veyron. So are there things that are faster, easier to drive, quicker, cheaper to own that are this level? Yeah, I think so. But the Veyron is still special. And I think truly long term, this should follow like the path of the McLaren F1 did, and maybe 30, 50 years from now be worth $30 million, $40 million. I know if I became unbelievably wealthy, I'd be spending tons of money on something. I would have a Veyron in a collection because you kind of have to. It's what I grew up with. I want an Enzo. I want a Carrera GT. I want a Veyron. So I think that will make these really special long term. Really special. All right, we had to do at least one little stint on the highway. Wow. Final takeaways from driving the Bugatti Veyron is it's so easy to drive. It's comfortable. The power is so accessible. It is so fast. It actually handles pretty well. The transmission is great. It's spacious, easy to see out of. I mean, the only downside is it costs an unfathomable amount of money to own and run, to buy, to maintain. And we knew that, right? There's nothing we did not know. But this car was engineered to be a no compromises hypercar, right? The fastest production car, over 1,000 horsepower, had the handle, and it was an engineering marvel. And I think I could see why they're worth so much money. I think they'll be worth a ton in the future. But what an unbelievable experience to get to drive a Mansory carbon fiber Bugatti Veyron. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Thanks for watching.